everybody, it's lovely to see you. So my name is Philippa Gardner and I'm an academic at Imperial, but also I chair the awards committee who had the wonderful job of choosing the awards this year. My first announcement is about the BCS CPH Distinguished Dissertation Award that I wasn't part of, but I've been asked to say a few words. So the thesis that deserves an honourable mention is by Simon Paulding, and it's on the use of automated search in deriving software testing strategies. The committee felt that this thesis takes an approach that has been regarded as attractive in theory, but difficult in practice. It turns it into a potentially useful tool for testing large systems. This has enormous implications for the practice of software engineering and for the development of robust and dependable software under realistic industrial conditions. Congratulations to Simon, who's in the audience, and please stand up. And the winner is Johan Reuter from the University of Edinburgh, talking about, giving a thesis on graph patterns, structure, query answering, and applications in schema mappings and formal language theory. Graph data management is currently one of the most active topics in knowledge engineering, driven by the graph models that underpin the semantic web, social network analysis, biological databases, geographical information systems, and many others. The committee felt that this thesis was exceptionally strong, containing both theoretical analysis and practical applications to an area of great and growing importance in computer science. It provides a well-founded way of addressing a topic that spans a large range of topics of current interest in a way that offers significant prospects for further fruitful research. Unfortunately, Johan can't be with us this evening, and he'll have his winner's plaque sent to him. Now, the main reason to be here today is to celebrate Natasha getting the Roger Needham Award. Now, this is presented to an individual from computer science or engineering, from academia or industry, or actually anywhere as long as they meet the criteria, in mid-career with 10 years since the PhD, up to 10 years since the PhD. Just to say, there's a new call out for the next Roger Needham Award next year for the 5th of January. And what is clear is that some departments are really good at nominating their fabulous youngsters, and some departments are less good. So please, if you can think of good people, they deserve to be celebrated. This award is sponsored by Microsoft Research Cambridge, and it's the BCS Roger Needham Award. Roger Needham was head of the computer laboratory in Cambridge for many years, and he was the first person to take charge of a Microsoft Research Centre outside Redmond. In fact, the rumour goes, and I think this is true, that he actually was invited to head the one in Redmond loads of years ago, and they never managed to entice him there, and somebody said, oh, for goodness sake, we'll give him one in Cambridge. I'm not quite sure how much that's true. I would like to introduce Andrew Phillips, who is head of the biological computation group in the Computational Science Laboratory at Microsoft Research Cambridge. Please join me to say a few words on Microsoft's behalf.
Great. Thank you very much, Philippa, for the kind introduction. So it's a real pleasure to be here and to present the prestigious Roger Needham Award. This award basically recognizes some of the leading innovators in the UK, and the UK itself is recognized internationally as a hub of excellence in research. And this, as Philippa pointed out, was one of the main reasons why Microsoft Research chose to set up its first international laboratory outside of the US in the UK. So that's a great honor for us to be here. So I won't say too much. I'll keep this quite brief because you'll hear a more detailed introduction into some of the work of Natasha Purgell shortly. But just briefly, she's a fellow of the British Computer Society, and in 2013, she was elected into the Young Academy of Europe. She received a prestigious European Research Council, ERC, Starting Independent Researcher Grant for 2012 to 2017 for a project entitled Biological Network Topology Complements Genome as a Source of Biological Information. She also held the prestigious NSF Career Award for the project entitled Tools for Analyzing, Modeling, and Comparing Protein-Protein Interaction Networks, 2007 to 2011, at the University of California, Irvine. And her research has been supported by other large governmental and industrial grants, including GlaxoSmithKline, IBM, and Google. So briefly, one of the primary aims of Microsoft Research is to advance the state-of-the-art in computer science research. And in recent years, it's become increasingly apparent that computer science and computer science research is impacting the world around us, not only in the computer industry, but also in other areas like economics and also biology. And so I'd like to congratulate this year's winner of the Roger Needham Award, Natasha Purgell. And her work basically demonstrates the importance of computational approaches in science and provides a much valued contribution to the scientific field's understanding of biological networks. So, Natasha Purgell.
This was my first year as chair of the awards committee, and I was absolutely bowled over by the candidates' proposals. It's given me enormous pleasure to look over them. And bother it, I had to be out of the room when Natasha was chosen for her award, but I was enormously proud to hear that she had got it. I would now like to introduce Professor Igor Yurski, who's from the Princess Margaret Cancer Centre and the University of Toronto, to the stage to introduce the lecture. He was one of the co-supervisors of Natasha when she was doing a PhD.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here and great honor to actually do an introduction lecture for Natasha, who was my first PhD student graduating and one of the more successful ones. So, as Monty Python would say, now for something completely different, because what I want to do is not really talk about kind of what she was doing when she was studying, what she was doing when she started her career as a professor, but more of where does it fit the research, the type of research that she is doing. And as you know, she's focusing a lot on networks. So these are basically large graphs. The change basically of the game is that these graphs are becoming larger, they change dynamically, and they evolve over time. So we have to have a better ways of analyzing it, because through those analysis of those graphs, we get a better handle on complex diseases like cancer. So we can identify patients which to treat and how to treat them, and also how to then eventually use specific treatment options for these patients. So to kind of go back, we had to be, as computer scientists, always aware of that the data itself comes from the biological samples, multiple types of experiments on cell lines, microscopy images, and so on. That they are then profiled through different kinds of technologies, from mass spectrometry to sequencing to gene expression arrays, and so on. And we have to be aware of it because there is reality. These technologies will generate data. We have to then do various kind of analysis, but always be aware of where is the data coming from, so we can interpret it through multiple types of algorithms. These different data points give us requirements of what to analyze, how to analyze, and importantly, how to interpret. What are the boundaries of our interpretation? But importantly, now through these analyses, we are at a stage where we can optimize what kind of experiments to do, so we can do faster, more relevant experiments, and hopefully cheaper get results on complex diseases. Biology is like pictures. Pictures is worth 1,000 words, true, but you cannot really analyze computationally these kind of diagrams. We need to analyze them because that's what biologists think they know about how cell works, disease and cancer cell, for example. Well, this is rendition of this kind of data on a computational way. Well, it's becoming a little bit more complex. How do you interpret it? How do you visualize it? Most of these diagrams now are so big with so much detail that monitors do not have enough pixels to store or display this information. So we have to find new ways of efficiently processing and analyzing. Again, we have to keep track of what is the reality, what are our models, what the data is telling us, do we need to change the models, and so on. We have to be open-minded, and we have to share data. More data is usually good, but this basically shows that it's like if somebody is thirsty and you offer them to drink from a fire hydrant, you can be washed out with the water, because we have to be, again, aware of what are the models that we use for representing this data. Can those algorithms that we design scale to the type of problems that we are dealing with? And importantly, garbage in, garbage out. So we have to be careful of what the data really means and what can we analyze. Natasha contributed not only multiple theories, but also then tools that can analyze many of these large graphs, that we can analyze realistically large problems and gain sufficient insight from it. There are multiple types of networks. For example, in transportation networks, we know that scalability is essential, because if you are plane number 28 on tarmac waiting for takeoff, plane doesn't look like a very fast way of transportation. If you are on a train that you cannot actually see through the people, doesn't seem like a very comfortable way of transporting. Or in the US, seeing the so-called parkway, truly where you park your car for a few hours. And doesn't matter if they use white gloves or not. If somebody has to shove you into a subway, that's very not scalable solution for transporting patients or people. So going back to Natasha's work, from graph theory, expanding the theory, the important aspect is how do you apply it to biology or other fields? How do you interpret the results? How do you make sure that what you are analyzing can scale to the problems of this size as these networks expand? And she developed many tools, and she was able to apply them to multiple biological problems, published with collaborators multiple high-impact factor journals, and was able to interpret results that normally biologists would not see. What is important is also to push the insight. And she was also, with some of her work, questioning what other more senior researchers were presenting as realistic models, and she was able to show that those models are incorrect, and still the data holds. One such approaches are these graphlets that she has created in her PhD work. And this is example of how, for example, physical interactions in human protein network, how it's expanding over the years. Well, that analysis can also be very elegantly analyzed through graphlets and just analyze how these individual graph structures or motifs, how they change over time across different years in these protein interaction networks. That gives us insight of what is changing and how, and what is the function of these proteins that we are identifying. So to kind of change the gear again, what you are looking at is a Wordle analysis. The larger the word, the more frequently occurs on Natasha's CV. So it was gratifying to see that most of her work was done by her. Obviously, kind of a lot of biological, bioinformatics, networks, biology. What is kind of interesting that comes is that June is a relatively prominent month for some reason. We can wonder why. Well, interestingly enough, if we take out of the CV only titles of her publications, you get a different graph. Now I removed Natasha's name because it would obviously be the largest one. So we can now see some of her students that contributed heavily into her work. But again, still, bioinformatics, integrative network, and so on. What is interesting, where is the time? There are different months that were prevalent more here. January is one of the larger months. So maybe she's publishing what she was, kind of what was important earlier across the whole CV, she's publishing in January issues of the journals. If we take just the titles of her presentations, and she made numerous presentations at universities and research institutes, again, network, biological topology, protein, and so on. But interestingly, she's mostly talking in September for some reason. So one of the other kind of aspects is that there are multiple ways of designing these algorithms, multiple ways of computationally analyzing this data. But this cartoon, I think, is very fitting because you can be this kind of a loser that has even multiple hooks on trying to find what is relevant, and fish are not interesting. If you have the right question, you can, or right bait, you can be a lot more successful in finding relevant information. And that's precisely what this kind of identifying structures in graphs and linking this structure to the function of these protein networks or metabolic networks and so on is. Because we start with this hairball, which is kind of daunting. Too many connections, too many nodes, too much busy information. And you can relatively easily decipher different complexes, their functional annotations, and you can start interpreting and planning future experiments. That kind of moves into multiple other types of analysis on pathways, signaling cascades, and the networks that can gain better insight into how to treat patients, what the disease progression means, and so on. So that is why, kind of as in this cartoon, we need computers, but we need scalable approaches that can scale to the problems of the size that we are dealing with. And to kind of start finalizing, as I was mentioning, Natasha did a lot of the applications of these theories into biology, but she also started to analyze it in other networks and other, for example, business networks. It is important that it is not overgeneralized because you have to know something about the data itself before you can meaningfully analyze it and interpret it. So it's very nice that kind of she's slowly broadening up, but she's not analyzing everything and anything that has a network structure. Importantly, though, there are many natures of Natasha, and over the years, she can be very persuasive in a very interesting red outfit or very persuasive lecturer in a black and white outfit. But without further ado, I will let Natasha to describe some of her research that led to this very prestigious award. Thank you very much. And Natasha, please.